Hey guys, Marsengan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so yes, today in the news update for JP, they have announced the EZA for AGL TURLES. A lot of people obviously predicted this because, you know, with the reveal of Raditz being the next Dokkan Fest, fits perfectly with him being another low-class warrior Saiyan. Also, if you look at the date, obviously he was originally released on JP around this time last year. Or not last year, in 2018, sorry. So, end of March, beginning of April was basically when he was originally released. So, here we are 4 years later, and he is getting his EZA. So, as I'm probably putting in the title, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be, but this EZA is actually really important. Like, this is one EZA out of all the ones that, you know, could potentially be coming that they really need to do right, because obviously we always want EZAs to be good, and if certain units used to be your favorite and you want them to come back into prominence, then obviously you're going to want their EZAs to be good. But when I say that his EZA needs to be good compared to some of the other upcoming Dokkan Fests, what I mean is things like, let's take STR Gohan, for example. STR Ulma Gohan. Obviously, he's super outdated now. He's not very good. Basically not runnable in the current meta. If he gets an EZA that is just kind of average, kind of mid, it doesn't really matter, because Hybrid Saiyans is still such a ridiculous team with so many options that can fill different roles. Whereas this Turles, not only is he probably going to be the best movie bosses leader for some time, if you look at all the categories that he's on, low class warrior, movie bosses, pure Saiyans, terrifying conquerors, final trump card, space traveling warriors, and planetary destruction. Every single one of these teams, even pure Saiyans with its massive roster of really good units, all of these teams will be massively benefited by having a support unit that is really good, because basically that is what Turles is, right? Like, when he first released, he was pretty much a must summon unit. I remember when he first came out, the Family Kamehameha EZA was going to come out, and you needed to use movie bosses to do that. So obviously people wanted to pull him just for that. But it's the fact that he has what I still consider to this day to be kind of the perfect archetype for a category leader, which is that he links up reasonably well with the rest of the team, even not so much with non-Saiyans, of course, and he does have some of those sort of wonky Turles-only links. But that doesn't matter, because if you don't want to use him as a main rotation unit, you could use him to obviously lead the movie boss's team, and then you can just use him as a third slot floating unit, because he's providing everybody 3 key and 40% attack. So that allows you to then build the team any way you want, whereas the classic example from back in the day was pure Saiyans with units like either the physical transforming Vegeta or AGL Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, where if you didn't want to run them on main rotation, it means you had both of them floating, and apart from sharing a couple of links, when they float into the third spot on that turn, they weren't really doing anything for the team. In fact, they could almost be a hindrance for the team, right? You'd rather run a support unit. And then often that limits your team building, because often with some teams, you kind of almost feel, not like pressured, but like you almost feel like it's required to run one of the leaders on main rotation, because you don't want them both floating, and it means you can bring like an extra support unit for the other rotation, but that of course limits your team building. So Turles is the perfect leader for movie bosses, as well as being a support unit that can slot into any one of the teams that he's on. So what do they need to do with his EZA? So obviously his leader skill, movie boss, is 150. We've seen from the previous units that have a 150% leader skill that they usually go up to 160. If we look at movie bosses, obviously the other main Dokkan Fest leaders are Int Broly and Physical Broly. Obviously the LR Janemba, but he has an LR leader skill, so it's a bit lower anyway. Int Broly, obviously, is only like a year old, so he's not going to EZA anytime soon. Whereas if we look at the Physical Broly, he has the 170 to attack and then HP and defense 150. So as we saw from the recent EZA with Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, when he eventually gets his EZA, these will just go up to being 170 across the board, right? Because one of the numbers is already 170. So Turles, it would be awesome if he went up to 170 across the board, but based on what we've seen from the other units and such, it is most likely he will go up to 160. And then the extreme class, this is kind of an interesting one because he's in a bit of a unique position having a sub lead like this compared to some of the other units that have easy aid. But I would say as a bare minimum, this needs to be 100%. But at the end of the day, like, if you're going to use him as a leader to run movie bosses, you're probably not going to be bringing, like, non-movie bosses units to just get his secondary leader skill. You obviously can if you want, but I don't think that's going to be anywhere near the way you want to build the team. So the secondary part of his leader skill is not really important. This will go up to 160. So even though it's 10% less attack and defense than in Broly, it's 30% extra HP, which obviously could be very helpful considering movie bosses. ESBR is probably still the hardest ESBR stage. I think it probably is harder than Pure Saiyans. But yeah, that leader skill is going to be very, very good. So his super attack, immense damage with a medium chance to stun. Now, if you've used him in Super Battle Road and you've tried to rely on that stun chance, you know that medium chance ain't it. So it would be very, very good if this was to go up to high chance. And then immense damage is obviously fine. That's what we'd expect from a Dokkan Fest unit anyway. If he gets some sort of raises attack and or defense, then obviously that's going to benefit him. I don't know if they would make him like an infinite stacking unit because he has the transformation where they could really go ham on that because obviously, you know, he eats the fruit and it powers him up. He could quite easily have like raises attack and defense for one turn, or even just raises defense for one turn. Obviously, the goal is anything that makes him better defensively, because again, any of these other teams that you want to use him as a third slot floating support unit, you don't want him to be on one of those turns where there's like 6 attacks in the last slot, and then he just gets absolutely decimated. So having some sort of raises defense on super attack, even if it is only for one turn, would obviously be very, very good. And then his passive is all allies 3 key and attack 40%. Now, I don't know whether they will push up the 40%. What I would much rather prefer is if he gives defense as well. And so either attack and defense 40%, even if it was just attack 40 and defense like 20, even something is obviously better, right? Because it's much better to get extra attack and defense. But on the flip side, if they pushed him up to, say, 3 key and 50% attack, but with no defense, he would obviously still be very good, but then they just need to make sure that he is good enough defensively by himself, so they can cover that with the super attack effect, or obviously these older units, as you can see, like pre-EZA, no actual attack and defense in his passive, like, for himself. So I would assume he's going to get at least 100% attack and defense at the start of the turn, or they'll do one of the things where it's like he just gets defense, but then he gets attack on super, something like that. But he definitely needs to have start of turn defense. If they give him his attack and defense on super attack, then it basically relegates him to only ever being used in slot 2 or 3. So obviously having the defense at the start of the turn is a much better way to do that. And then he also debuffs superclass enemies attack 15%, something else that can be very, very useful in Super Battle Road. This could quite easily go up to 20 or 25% without being too overly powerful, so that would be very good. And then transform when conditions are met. So this is the most important part. We know now with EZA units, because we've seen a couple now, that these transformation conditions are up for being changed with an EZA. So, 25% chance to activate Fruit of the Tree of Might boost for 3 turns when HP is 80% or below. This is probably one of the worst things about the unit, like when he came out. Especially if, as we talked about, you want to run him in a support unit role. Like, him transforming is basically the worst thing that can happen, because then he's not fulfilling the role that you brought him on the team for. Now, best case scenario, if we're talking about the dream situation, is that he becomes the first unit to get an EZA where his transformation changes from being this like chance when HP is 80% or to being an active skill. If it was an active skill that could be activated when HP was 80% or below, that would be insane, because you could just choose to never activate it if you didn't want to. But like I said, that's the best case scenario. I don't think that that is what they're going to do. But as we see all the time, Dokkan does things that they've never done before. There's always a first time for everything, right? So maybe that will happen one day. Maybe it will be with Turles. But I'm definitely not going to, you know, say that I think it is going to happen with him. It would just be pretty awesome. So what they need to do is they need to make sure that his actual transformed version is worth getting. Now, I say that when he first came out, you could see on the turns where he transformed, he became really, really good, both offensively and defensively. He recovers HP at the start of the turn, his stun chance goes up to high, so he was very, very good. So this could quite easily jump up to at least 200%, if not more. HP recovery, 15% is fine. It could go up a little bit. Obviously, teams are getting more and more HP now. So 15% HP is actually more and more as the teams go up in their total HP. But then that's all he has. And the high chance to stun, if we're going to make his base high chance to stun, then obviously his transformed state should be great chance to stun. I think that makes perfect sense. And then, again, if we really want him to be like the big boost unit once he transforms, his super attack should get something like greatly raises attack and defense for like 3 turns or something. So then if you get an additional, it stacks again. And then his transformed state, he's actually going to be an absolute powerhouse. So in that best case scenario where you're actually able to use his transformation as an active skill, you could use it in those key moments to use him as a finisher unit. But like I said, I don't think that's what they're going to do. So how can we make this better? Unfortunately, when it comes to RNG transformations, it's hard to say what would actually be better, because do we make the HP restriction like lower? So you have to be on lower health. So I guess it means restriction higher, right? So HP like 50%, because then you're a lot less likely to see it, especially in situations where it's like turn 1 or 2 and you're going in on a team with like full health and you want support, so you can have your double LR rotation or whatever it is looking nice and spicy, and then he just transforms straight away. So maybe making the HP percentage lower, maybe making the percentage chance lower, but at the same time you also don't want them to make it so that if his transformed state is actually really, really powerful after his EZA, you don't want to make it so that you never get it. So one thing that would be really good is if they do add in to his transformed state some sort of support. So let's say after EZA he goes up to being 3 key and 40% attack and defense in his untransformed state. Just make his transformed state give like 2 key and 20% attack and defense as an example. Because then he's still somewhat fulfilling the role that you brought him on the team for, whilst at the same time then being a strong offensive and defensive unit. So obviously there's a lot of things that they could do with him. But as I said, like, this is an EZA that I feel is very important. If they mess it up, his EZA, I'm going to be very disappointed. Obviously, I've said in the past, like, LR Team TURLES is still one of my favourite yellow coin LRs. I'm not saying I think they're the best LR or anything like that. They're just one of my personal favourites. And obviously this guy getting an EZA means that that is going to be a bit more of a viable rotation, especially if he's giving defense, because the LR Team TURLES doesn't quite have the defense to cut it in some of the harder events anymore. So I'm very, very excited to see what they're going to do with this guy, and hopefully they do not drop the ball. So the weakness for his EZA, if you didn't know, if you're on JP and you want to start preparing, is low class warriors. But of course I will do a team building guide for this, which will go up like the day before the event comes out, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. What would you like to see from AGL TURLES EZA? Really hoping that they don't drop the ball with this one, so let me know what you guys think down below. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.